So I saw Exit 8 tonight. Now, when it comes to the usual seizure warning I like to give, I'm not typically worried with films like this one because Japanese media companies and Japanese filmmakers in general tend to be very cognizant of mitigating seizure risk because of Electric Soldier Porygon. So this film should be considered relatively safe. There is some moments towards the end of the film that might affect people who have photosensitive epilepsy. But again, I'm not a doctor, not an expert, just a guy trying to do right by those living with epilepsy. So those of you who actually live with the condition, trust your best judgment, but Exit 8 should be relatively safe. Now, I have not played the video game that this film is based on, and honestly, the whole reason I went to see it is because I had a free movie ticket coupon through my Cinemark Rewards account, and out of everything that had come out this week, this at least seemed like the most interesting idea. And I definitely have to say, this film is pretty good at being unsettling, because there's all too common an issue with a lot of horror and thriller films where they feel the need to rely on jump scares every so often. And while this film has jump scares here and there, they feel more earned because it does a really good job of just creating a nice, unsettling atmosphere with a relatively simple premise and a relatively simple location. And for those of you who don't know, the whole idea behind Exit 8 is that you're basically, the main character is trapped in a subway exit and has to essentially follow some very cryptic directions in order to escape from said exit. I don't want to go into too much detail since it would risk kind of spoiling things for those of you who, like me, weren't familiar with the game going into it. And so if you're someone who hasn't played the game, I would definitely recommend going into this film as blind as possible in order to really enjoy the experience and the mystery that's kind of through this undercurrent. And that's pretty much the strongest thing I can say about it, is that it's very good at being unsettling and makes very effective use of its setting and definitely makes you very, very on edge, especially as the film wears on. Without going into too much detail, the way the suspense is structured is done so in a way that it makes you look around the frame in order to spot details. I don't know how else to describe it, again, without spoiling the story. But by the time I got to the film's end, I was, like, scanning all of the parts of the frame of the shot just because of that conditioning the film puts you into. And it was really, really masterfully well done. But I also like that the film had some deeper themes it was willing to explore, especially when it comes to... I don't really want to say this too much. I guess since it's something that's kind of alluded to at the start of the film, I can kind of say this, where it does explore kind of the anxieties of accepting the responsibilities of being an adult, being a father. There's a lot of the kind of the undercurrent through line of actually having to break out of your routine in order to make an effective change. That was kind of my biggest takeaway of Exit 8's central theme, is this idea that you can't just keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And I like how it explored that, but didn't try to give an explanation, as it were. It's not something a lot of horror films nowadays feel the need to do, where they feel the need to have to explain everything, where everything has to have, like, this deep lore to it. Whereas this film feels very much in tradition of a lot of the J-horror films that came to prominence during the early 2000s, where it has the spooky premise, but it doesn't try to overcomplicate its premise by explaining itself. It very much is one of those, hey, here's something weird and spooky. Hey, wasn't that weird and spooky? And honestly, I very much respect this film for it, because it's actually refreshing for a film to actually have confidence in its idea and is respectful of its audience's intelligence. Again, it's something that's almost become a bit of a dying art with a lot of American films, so that was another reason that I really, really enjoyed Exit 8. And again, with its minimal cast, its creative set design, even though it's pretty much all kept to the same basic location, it was a very well crafted together psychological thriller / horror film. It's hard to really classify whether it falls more into psychological thriller or straight up horror because it kind of rides that line of it being both. And I would definitely have to say Exit 8 is more Silent Hill than Return to Silent Hill was. That much I am certain. It felt like I was watching a Silent Hill story that took the ideas of exploring deeper psychological themes without bogging it down with a bunch of unnecessary lore. So, yeah. I don't know what else I can really say about this film without spoiling things, because I really, really, really recommend this film. And if you haven't played the game it's based on, try to go in as blind as possible. But all of that said, I highly recommend Exit 8. It is really, really good. Probably one of the best psychological horror films I have seen in quite some time. So, yeah, that's pretty much it for this video review thingy, and I will end things here, because now I have to go and lift heavy things to work off the popcorn. But I will see you all next time I get the next chance to see a movie.